as you go through your study process and you print out your standards or the competencies, make sure that you are utilizing a reading strategy that every reading teacher uses, like everywhere on the planet, and it's just annotating your text. Taking notes on your text, rephrasing things in your own words to solidify to your brain that you know what this means or have understanding. So even with something as simple as domain 1, where it says reading pedagogy, I know that reading means like, to read or whatever. Pedagogy is the science / art / craft of teaching. It's a science, it's an art, and a craft all together, all up in one shebang. And so this is about the teaching of reading, right? The science of teaching reading, to be specific. We go down to domain 2. We get into the foundational skills. Now, these foundational skills are very important for you to have knowledge in. This is one of the sections for your written portion. You have to be able to identify the areas of weakness in student evidence, right? In their texts, in their oral language recordings, in their written statements or activities, and you are to identify areas of support that you think the student needs, just as you would do in your classroom. And one of the sections is foundational skills. Very important for you to understand foundational skills. So within foundational skills, we have oral language, listening and speaking, phonological and phonemic awareness. And I'll explain how there is a slight difference amongst the two. Print concepts and alphabetic knowledge. Phonetics and other word identification skills. So phonetics as in itself, a type of decoding skill, but we have several. Syllabication and morphemic analysis skills. As you're going through these, as you're reading these, as you are researching and identifying activities, I want for you to write on this document or your standards document the different activities you could use, because that's what they're going to ask you. This competency on syllabication and morphemic analysis, it's one of the under categories of science of teaching reading. It's one of the areas that you might get students with evidence for, and you should have activities in mind that will help support a student's skill set in syllabication, a student's skill set in morphemic analysis. So each one of these competencies, go through Pinterest and take a look at the different activities, the different lessons and skill building activities that are available. Every single teacher in the United States, possibly in the world, has access to Pinterest, and literally all of those angels put their hard, creative, critical thinking work for examples for all of us all to use. And so I super encourage you to take these different competencies and make sure that you go through something like Pinterest and look up different activities you can do to help build in these different skills. In the skill of phonics and word identification, I guarantee you will see a plethora of word identification skill activities, hands-on, creative, tactile, differentiated for all sorts of students, and it's all laid out for you. Somebody else did the hard work. You just have to research it. And so I would go through this and at least list a couple of activities that I could use to bolster these particular areas that are, again, within these foundational skills, the foundational skills in reading development. What science has told us over the decades is that if students have a weakness in these foundational skills, they have difficulty and sort of trials and tribulations through the reading process with reading literacy if their foundational skills are not solid. And so that's the push for STR. That's why we have this new content area. And I honestly think it's fantastic because I literally have seen a change just in my own children. So we did syllabication, morphemic analysis, and we have reading fluency as well. And each one of these areas has a different way that we would measure, a different way that we would assess that skill. Reading fluency has a very particular way of assessing. And so it's very important that you are knowledgeable and have read through all of the competencies, but not just read through them. Put them in your own words. Sort of make them your own. It's very important that you have a stronger than working knowledge understanding. So let's just put this away for a second and we'll go on with our okay, I'll be right back. So this is a really great, speaking of teachers making great resources for us, this is a fantastic resource that I got off of Teachers Pay Teachers. And it breaks down the competency. So domain 1, reading pedagogy, the teaching, the science, the art, the craft of reading. And competency 1 states, understands foundational concepts and principles and best practices related to science of teaching reading. Competency 2 is about reading assessment. And it's important to know the instructional strategies that support each stage of reading development. Each stage of the reading, what strategies can we use to support our students? Here we are. These, you see in bold the different strategies you can use. So guided read alouds for your 7 and 8 year olds, first and second graders. It's first, because I have a first and second grader. So I have a 7 and 8 year old. That's exactly. Guided read alouds for more complex texts. Repeated and monitored oral reading, reading aloud to them daily, and ask students to read text aloud. Those are things that you can do for them in that transitional period. In the intermediate period, 9 to 13, you can do targeted reading and teach specific comprehension strategies, such as comprehension monitoring, taking account of your own thinking, monitoring your comprehension. Did I understand that paragraph? And that's what I want you to do with your strategies and your competencies. At the end of each little chunk of the text in your competencies, I want you to paraphrase it. Say it in your own words. Say it in a shorter sentence. I don't care if you say it in 3 words. If you can say all that needs to be said in 3 words and you have an understanding, then that's fine. It's not for me, it's for you. Those strategies of comprehension monitoring, sort of writing or rephrasing the text at the end of a chunk or a paragraph, very important. And that's what I'm asking you to do with your own studies to help you solidify comprehension of these particular of this particular content. So using graphic and semantic organizers, so meaning organizers, and you can also use those. And I use them myself. If you watched my videos, you've seen me show you different graphic organizers referring to the science of teaching reading, the way in which reading is engaged, and the different strands that sort of entwine in order to make a competent reader. So graphic organizers, meaning organizers, and or semantic organizers, very important. Answering questions, generating questions, recognizing text structures is very important. Teaching the students the characteristics of different text structures is important. Teaching them how to understand, like, oh, this is a how-to text, or this is a cause and effect type text, and they should be able to identify them based on characteristics in the text, and modeling of our reading it together, summarizing and identifying main ideas and important details. Then you have the advanced, and adolescents deserve access to and instruction with multimodal as well as traditional print resources. So it would be a travesty to only include written text, like paper text. We have to show them things that are in media and video, because there's text and there's language and there's messages in all sorts of media. And the students have to be able to read that and be literate in that as well. Do I have any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so these are some great terms that you just have to know. I guarantee you there's going to be something about a digraph. There's going to be something about a diphthong. So when we talk about blending, when the students are learning a new word, let's say it's cat, and we say cat, and then we blend it together to draw individual sounds together to pronounce a word. Snap, blend together, read snap, snap. So that blending, students have to learn that. Digraph. Di means two, graph means letter or picture. So it's two letters that represent one speech sound. So examples, sh, ch, t. One speech sound, which is a diphthong, two letters, but this one is only consonants. A digraph is only going to be non-vowel letters. Digraph. Diphthong. And this is where the phoneme where the mouth glides from one vowel sound directly into another one. So like joy, oi. The O and Y is oi. Both vowel sounds may be heard, but not quite making their usual sounds because, again, they're blending. So oi, ow, and ow. How. That is a diphthong. And the digraph is the consonant cousin. Diphthong is the very serious vowel sound, and the digraph is the consonant cousin, which is the two consonants that make one blended sound. Shh. Shh. Phoneme. The smallest unit of sound in our spoken language. Pronouncing the word cat involves blending three phonemes. A grapheme, and you'll see that the word graph is in there. Think of graph like a pie chart, like whatever type of graph. Graph is a letter written are a group of letters representing one speech sound. Examples: b, sh, ch, eh. Onset. And you hear onset discussed with onset rhyme in reference to science of teaching and reading. So the onset part of onset rhyme deals with an initial consonant or consonant cluster like sh that follow the consonant cluster. In the word name, N is the onset. In the word blue, bl is the onset. The onset is everything before the vowel in a word. Before the vowel. The rhyme is the vowel or the vowel and then the consonants that follow. So in a word name, aim is the rhyme. N is the onset. So we have N equals so N, onset, aim, rhyme. So with the word onset, what's the onset and what's the rhyme? This word here. Onset. On. Oh, that's hard. I'm not going to ask y'all that question because that's too hard. Let's do this one here. Let's do blend. What is the onset and what is the rhyme? I want you to find for me the onset and the rhyme. Are you there, ladies?
Would it be the onset? Would it be the BL? And then the rhyme would be the end, EN?
Absolutely. So this here is the onset, and this here is the rhyme. So we have onset, rhyme and onset. The beginning part, it begins it up into the vowel, and then everything after that first vowel is rhyme. Morphemes are the smallest meaningful units of language. Meaningful means they carry meaning in it of themselves. That's not the same for individual graphemes like the letter A or the letter B. It doesn't carry meaning in it of itself, but there are certain units of words, clusters of letters that do carry meaning, and those are morphemes. And so we try to teach the students to be able to identify parts of words that they've seen in other words that they know, and help them decode other words. Sorry, guys. I have a pregnant dog who might be giving birth anytime soon, and we don't even know what's going on. So these are the different types of assessments that you have. And I've gone through these in great detail in my video. I'm not going to do it again right now, but I do suggest you look at those if you haven't already. I go into great detail with formative assessments, summative assessments, and the like. So with reading development and those foundational skills, competency 3 we need the student to understand, for us, in order to be able to help the students understand foundational concepts, principles, and best practices related to the development of oral language, including our ELL students when they're acquiring second language, and demonstrate knowledge of developmentally appropriate research and evidence-based assessment, and, very important, instructional practices, the stuff that we plan for to promote all students' development of grade level oral language skills, listening and speaking skills. The competency 4 states that the teacher understands concepts, principles, and best practices related to the development of phonological and phonemic awareness, and demonstrates knowledge of developmentally appropriate research, again, evidence-based assessment and instructional practices to promote all students' development of the grade level phonological, that speech sound, and phonemic awareness. And phonemic awareness, let me just grab that for you just a little really quickly. Phonemic awareness is conscious awareness of individual speech sounds. Like I know C makes the k and B makes the p sound in spoken syllables, and my ability to manipulate them. Now, phonological awareness is different. It's different from phonemic awareness. In fact, phonemic awareness is under the umbrella of phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is a term that includes the ability to identify, count, manipulate parts of a word, including syllables, onset rhymes, and phonemes. So phonemic awareness is your awareness in the speech sounds. Phonological awareness is much larger than that. And so we need to have appropriate knowledge of how to assess and instruct students the different grade levels of phonemic and, phonological and phonemic awareness. What you need to know: the levels of English language proficiency, culturally responsive instruction, academic language, the differences between phonemic and phonological awareness, which I've just gone over briefly, and syllable patterns. So here we have the English levels of language proficiency. We have pre-production, early production, speech emergence, intermediate, and advanced. I'm not going to spend too much time because this differs a little bit with what we work with. According to Dr. Matthew Lynch, this is something I believe so strongly in. You literally cannot influence someone unless you treat them as though you see them. You really see them. And culturally responsive teaching, which many people confuse for CRT, just because they have the same acronym. It's really important. It's one of the ways to make students understand you see them, who they are, where they come from, their differences, their uniqueness, all of it. So according to Dr. Matthew Lynch, culturally responsive instruction is student-centered approach to teaching in which the student's unique cultural strengths are identified and nurtured to promote students' achievement and a sense of well-being about the student's cultural place in the world. There are several components to a well-structured, culturally inviting classroom. Patricia Schmidt, author of Culturally Responsive Instruction, Promoting Literacy in Secondary Content Areas, State that these areas are having high expectations for your students, positive relationships with the family and the community at large, cultural sensitivity. You are sensitive to where your students come from and who they are. Active teaching measures or methods. Teacher as a facilitator, not as the instructor, but as someone who facilitates instruction. Students' control of portions of the lessons, and that addresses allowing students agency and really remembering that a student's education is their own. Yes, you're a teacher. Yes, it's your job, but it is their learning experience. It is their education, their experience. And so they should have some input to something. And I'll tell you, anytime you invite them to have input, you're going to see better results. They take more ownership, more pride, more onus, more sort of internal motivation factors if they are part of it, if they have some sort of control and they are agents of change, agents of action. And so instruction and group pairs. Make sure you are pairing your strong readers with some of your lower readers. Up strength with weakness, so that when you do think pair shares, when you do read alouds, when you do paired work, that you have a good pairing of skill to make for an educational setting. Even the student that's higher in skill will be able to learn from navigating and helping the student that's lower. Okay, so make sure you think about how you could make your classroom culturally responsive. There's lots of books that you could read. I actually have some on my YouTube channel. So academic language. Academic language needs to be direct, instruct, taught every single time. If you are introducing a new word, a new academic language, terminology, you have to direct instruct. You have to direct instruct. There needs to be visual explorations. You are exploring this word and what it means visually, possibly tactile, if you could even get it in there. You throw it in and or choose structured close readings that will help the students see how that word is used in context, and then provide opportunities for them to utilize that language again later. Very important that academic language is direct instructed. You can communicate and should communicate through the means other than language, meaning physical models, visual demonstrations. However, you should develop your students' abilities to produce and understand oral and written types of text. So like having them write it down in their own words, having them draw that visual that you discussed. Very important that your academic language goes through these 4 rounds. You focus on it by engaging with it, by dissecting it, by putting it in your own words, by visually exploring it, by viewing it in readings, and by writing about it later. All right, so here we have phonological awareness. There are lots of questions on the exam about both phonemic and phonological awareness. It is very important to know the difference between the two. And I told you briefly what the difference was, right? Phonological awareness is like the umbrella with which under phonemic awareness resides. It's one of the skills of phonological awareness. So phonological awareness is the broader term. It is the umbrella. It's the ability to recognize and manipulate the spoken parts of words. Examples including being able to identify words that rhyme or recognizing alliteration, or segmenting a sentence into different words, identifying the syllables, blending and segmenting onset rhymes. All of those are skills within phonemic awareness. And here you see the different stages here. We have possibly at stage 3, they can rhyme, they have rhyme awareness. And we have the different blocks of phonemic awareness here. Change final sound to make new words. So change met to mess, to men, to meg. So in phonemic awareness, there are lots of questions on the exam. There are lots of questions on the exam on phonemic awareness, and phonemes, come in under phonological awareness. So phonemic awareness refers to the specific ability to focus on and manipulate, to focus on and then to use them, to change them, to move them. That's manipulate. Manipulate individual sounds or phonemes in spoken words. Phonemes are the smallest units in a spoken language. This includes blending sounds together into words, segmenting words into sounds, and deleting and playing. Segmenting, deleting, substituting sections of or groups of letters into words, playing with the sounds in spoken words. This involves speech sound only. The National Reading Panel identified 6 phonemic awareness tasks, and they're listed below for assessment and instruction. Although they are not necessarily listed in order in which they should be introduced, and even you don't even teach them in isolation. Common sense suggests that the first couple of tasks are simpler and may be prerequisites for the more difficult ones. So then we have phonemic isolation. Phoneme means the smallest speech sound. Isolation means alone. So getting the smallest speech sound alone. So recognizing individual sounds in words. For example, tell me the first sound in paste. Phoneme identity. Recognizing the common sound in different words. For example, tell me the sound that is the same in bike, bell, boy. B. Phoneme recognition. Recognizing the word with the odd sound and sequence of 3 or 4 words. For example, which word does not belong? Bus, bun, rug. Phoneme blending. Listening to a sequence of separately spoken sounds and combining them to form a recognizable word. For example, what word is sk, oh, sk, of school, sk, school, school. Phoneme segmentation. Breaking words into sounds by tapping out or counting, or by producing or positioning a marker for each sound. Pronouncing and positioning a marker for each sound. For example, how many phonemes are in ship? And so it's 3. Sh, I, p. So only 3 phonemes, through just 3 discernible speech sounds. But as you see, there's more than one letter, but you have a digraph there. So the next is phoneme deletion, recognizing what word remains when a specified phoneme is removed. For example, what is smile without the s? And it's mile, right? So that's deletion, and it makes a totally different word. Syllable patterns, and this is important. You will see this on the exam, ladies. There are quite a few questions on the test that involve these syllable patterns. So it's important to know what these abbreviations stand for. So you have VCCV, consonant vowels, consonant vowel, consonant vowel. And so you have the examples there. vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel. And then you have the vowel, consonant, vowel patterns. Vowel, consonant, vowel. And in rabbit, monkey, consonant, vowel, monkey. So divide between two middle consonants, the C, C, V. So cat, nip here. And notice how they're not counting that front consonant because it's from the first vowel. Then you have this one down here, which is important. Oh, sorry, guys. This is important for you to know here. The VCE, which is that silent E, that complete or decide. The vowel divide, create. And it's the divide of the syllable, right? We're doing it at the syllable divide. Domain 2 continued. Understand concept, principles, and best practices related to the development of print concepts and alphabetic knowledge, understanding the alphabetic principle, and that's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, all of that. The alphabetic principle, that's what we're talking about, our alphabet. And you know, there are other languages and they have different phonemes. They even have different graphemes. So we will have students who come from a place that have different speech sounds that is native to their tongue and have to help them acquire English as a second language. Very important to remember. Competency 6, understand concept, principles, and best practices related to the development of phonics and other word identification skills. Phonics, not the same as phonemes. Phonics is your actively decoding language, the way that we break down and understand it, including spelling related skills. Competency 7 is you understanding the concepts, the principles, and best practices relating to developing your students' knowledge in syllabication and morphemic analysis, breaking those syllables apart, identifying different syllables, looking at the different morphemic parts and analyzing that for meaning, at the different word parts, morphemic word parts, and seeing if we can ascertain language based on the knowledge of the different word parts we've identified. Competency 8, understanding concepts, principles, and best practices related to the development of reading fluency. So these are the different words we need to pay attention to, stages of literacy development, alphabetic principle, word identification strategies, decoding skills. So here's word, wait, I think I just skipped a whole bunch of them. We'll go one at a time. Here's the alphabetic principle. Actually, you know what, guys? I think we're done for today. But I look forward to seeing the both of y'all next week, and we will continue with this same PowerPoint and go into greater detail.
Okay, and then for next week, do we just go ahead and register for the same session?
Yes, ma'am. You would just sign up for the same session. That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Ms. Trevino, I will send that to you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.